Boys, the plan is simple. We've got 15 super duper relevant Master Duel hand traps, and we're just going to be rattling off of what I believe their placement in the Master Duel meta is, which ones are hot, which one are not, and yeah, more or less, we're just going to be jumping straight into it. If you don't see your hand trap on this list, it's because it's bad. First, we have Effect Veiler. Effect Veiler is a pretty powerful card in Master Duel and just throughout the TCG overall. It has multiple uses per turn, so if you draw multiple into it off of Max C, it is activatable multiple times, which is its main benefit. It can basically just shut down monster effects in even rogue and very powerful combo decks. And personally, I just overall really like this card. It is a pretty strong card, and I believe it is worthy of the S tier designation. Like, just a very, very generic, powerful card, and even has some combo applications when it comes to the Hauka Fireback Celine Access Code Talker line. Very, very good stuff. We have Ghost, Ogre, and Snow Rabbit. This card doesn't always see the most amount of play, but when it does, this card definitely does kick ass. But unfortunately, destroying only and not negating, unfortunately, isn't quite enough to cut the cheese per se, and I really don't think that this card overall is as powerful as a lot of the other contenders on the list, just because of how relatively inconsistent this card can be, as well as the fact that stuff you may want to destroy might already have protection, say like a boss monster trying to negate something. The only relevancy I could see is maybe like Chainlink 1, your own monster effect, Chainlink 2, Apollo, Chainlink 3, Ghost Ogre, but again, those applications are pretty far and in between personally, so I'm going to put this in the high C tier. We've got Infinite Impermanence. Imperm is a bit of a weird one for me. It's a really, really powerful card, and it basically power crept Veiler by being able to be set, and you could use it on your opponent's turn, and even your own turn if you had nothing on your field, and you could basically just activate it from hand, maybe like force a negate, all that good stuff. However, I feel like the going first / using it on your own turn is just ultimately outshadowed by cards like Forbidden Chalice and Forbidden Droplet as of late. And I feel like the prowess of Veiler being able to be played while you have cards on your field already, such as in a turn 3 maxi or a turn 4 maxi, or maybe just having it in the wings overall, I feel like it's just a bit more practical when it compared to Infinite Impermanence. So that's why personally for Master Duel, I'm going to put it in the A tier, just below Veiler. This might be a little controversial, but it's my tier list. I can do what I want. We've got Ally of Justice Cycle Reader. This is basically the anti-Drytron and Eldritch card. This card saw a ton of play in the TCG during formats where Drytron and Eldritch were basically just like crawling about, and people needed ways in order to stop certain chains from resolving, just completely shut down their graveyard, that sort of deal. However, Ally of Justice Cycle Reader was only ever played mainly in the side deck, not in the main. And that's just because of how inconsistent this card is, unless you're preparing to see a field like 90% Eldritch or Drytron. So basically any Master Duel meta tournament. So in my opinion, this card is only good to see in the side deck and only in the main deck if literally every deck is a light deck. So for that reason, I'm going to be putting it in the D tier. If it was a bit more generic, I could maybe bump it up to C, but right now as it is, we don't have a side deck, unfortunately. This is just where the card kind of has to sit. Where this card is succeeded though is in DD Crow. This is basically Cycle Reader, but for only one target, but it's completely generic and you could use it anytime you want. Think of the amount of cards that need to be in the graveyard for decks to do their thing. Meteonis Drytron, Adamancipator's Block Dragon, all these sort of cards that are extremely critical. Even like Lyralux Tri-Brigade's Cobalt Sparrow, like that needs to be in the graveyard, and DD Crow is just able to handle so many threats that I really think this is an extremely powerful card for decks that are able to fit it. So I'm gonna put this in the S tier without a doubt. A pretty interesting one is Ghost Bell Haunted Mansion. This card is interesting. It again only really sees formats where it's able to see a ton of play because basically every deck played into it. Personally, it only really saw 2 real formats in my eyes where this card could be actually like considered, and it was during Zodiac Tri-Brigade format because this card could negate the Revolt, as well as during when like Eldritch Synchron was kind of like taking off, because this card could also negate Scarlet Sanguine. It would basically just act as a 4 through 6 copies of Ash Blossom because it could negate the graveyard effect special summoning for the Scarlet Sanguine. But personally, this card is just, again, pretty inconsistent. It's pretty weak. It has some application against Drytron, but again, this is just pretty inconsistent. I put it above the Snow Rabbit, but this card isn't really that good personally. Die Shifter is a very, very powerful card, but it is so non-generic. This card is Macrocosmos, the hand trap. It is so broken, but so little decks are able to play it. The only decks I believe that have ever been able to historically really play this card are Thunder Dragon, Grand Maju, and Madolche, which aren't exactly the cream of the crop when you consider that Die Shifter kind of shuts off a lot of your Madolche plays. Unfortunately, Die Shifter just has such a difficult point in finding a home. Although it's a really powerful effect, I kind of have to bump it down a ton of slots. If it was like only your opponent's cards, it would be like immediate S god tier, gamer god status. But as it is right now, just because of how non-generic friendly this card is, I'm going to put it in the B tier. We have Nibiru, the Primal Being. This is a sussy one because this card is either extremely powerful or extremely dead. When you look at combo decks, sometimes they're able to set up a negate on the 5th summon or even before the 5th summon. Sometimes they're able to set up boards that discourage you Nibiruing them, such as like Spheres plus like some other garbage. Sometimes they don't even play into it, and sometimes you play against Eldritch. Nibiru is just sort of this really weird card where you want to see it so often in so many matchups, but in so many other matchups you just never want to see it. I'd honestly just put this in like the B tier because although it's extremely powerful, it's just so inconsistent overall. Maybe the only deck where I would always be main decking Nibiru in is probably like Adamantipator, just because it is searchable off of Gallant Granite. Like, fuck it, I don't know. Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. I don't think I really need to argue for why this card shouldn't be S tier. This card is without a doubt the most powerful hand trap not named Maxi. Spoiler alerts, Maxi is probably S tier too. Not even probably, it just is S tier. It stops so much. Almost every single deck has to play around Ash Blossom in some way, and sometimes they just can't. Ash Blossom shuts off Scarlet Sanguine, it shuts off Drytron plays, it shuts off Adamantipator plays, it shuts off literally every single play you can think of that is a power move. And Ash Blossom is just that good. Cherry on the top, it also stops Maxi, which is fucking nuts. Like, if you're not playing Ash Blossom, you're actually like a bit of a goober. Next, we have Droll and Lockbird. Droll and Lockbird again suffers from the Cycle Reader problem, where it's an extremely powerful targeted card that's able to stop specific strategies extremely well. Stuff like Lyrilisk Try kind of can't play through Droll all the time. However, is it worth playing this card in order to stop the Drytron and Lyrilisk Try players when you're not even going to be able to play against them every single time? And I just think, no, unfortunately not. I'm gonna put this in like the C tier because it does technically have applications against Max C, but this card is just so goofy. Next, we have Fantastical Dragon Phantasmi. Phantasmi has been a really weird card throughout Yu-Gi-Oh's history. It was sort of like the 8th best hand trap during Toss format or Eternal format, as some of you may know it as, and it only served as a way to basically just act as like additional copies of better hand traps that you were digging for, as well as act as like kind of like a targeting body sometimes. This card was overall not that good, but people kind of played it just because decks were like maybe a little bit inconsistent, or you played it in like Dragon Link because it sort of had a native synergy, being a dark dragon, just acted as free material. Very, very nice stuff. But overall, this card is fucking dog shit in Master Duel. Like, what are you digging for? This card is like Max C, but like 100 times worse. Like, D tier. Awful. Poo-poo. I hate it. Play it only in Dragon Link, if anything. Artifact Lancia is, again, suffering from the Cycle Reader problem. A lot of practical application, a lot of really powerful matchups who are strong against stuff like Phantom Knight, stuff like Eldritch. It's really, really powerful stuff. Stuff like Invoked, where you're able to stop the invocation. But unfortunately, you're not always going to be playing against these matchups, and it's going to be dead in your hand more often than not. Honestly, in my opinion, this shit is honestly like a D tier. There's only one real matchup where it's sort of like an auto win, and it's like Phantom Knight maybe. Skullmeister. This card's surprisingly good. This card has a lot of application against a lot of the metagame. You've got Eldritch, you've got Drytron, you've got Phantom Knight, you've got so many decks that need shit to resolve in the graveyard. Stuff like Block Dragon, stuff like Ancient Cloak, stuff like these elixirs trying to recycle. This card is really, really powerful, but unfortunately it's kind of just like a worse DD Crow in my opinion. Again, there are applications where it's better, such as against Block Dragon, but overall I just see this card as like a slightly worse DD Crow. But if you need a replacement for that card, highly recommend Skullmeister. Still a really, really good card. I honestly feel comfortable putting this in like the A tier. Like, it's just that good of a card. It is really, really nice. And yeah, Skullmeister, good shit. Sideframe Gear Gamma. This card is really, really good. It's really good. I don't think I have to say that. You can activate this when you have no monsters on your field. Basically, it is Ghost Ogre and Effect Veiler tied into one. Two big caveats. One, you need to play Sideframe Gear Driver. Now, that wouldn't be too bad, because obviously, like, just playing a Garnet for an extremely powerful hand trap is, like, honestly worth it in my eyes. Second problem, it's at 2. Do you really want to play Gamma at 2? At 3, it was fine, because you're able to open it consistently, and you could stop stuff like Maxi, you could stop stuff like Ash Blossom on like a search spell. It was really, really powerful. However, at 2, this card's a lot less consistent. You're only able to see it like 10% less, and overall, this card is just not that good overall. Like, at 3, this card would be like probably an S tier. At 2, this shit's at best a B tier. You can play it if you have nothing else, but I really wouldn't even touch this card until it comes to 3. There are just so many consistency issues and deck building issues that come with trying to play Gamma at 2 or like 1 that some people actually do. Like, this card is just so poo-poo at 2. Like, I hate it. And finally, the one that you guys all came here for, figurative and literally, Maxi. Maxi, without a doubt, is the most defining hand trap in Master Duel. The whole metagame sort of warped around, do you have Maxi, and if so, how can I play through it? Because people are playing a ton of hand traps, or a ton of blind going second cards, or a ton of just combo cards, in order to enable Maxi as highly as possible. Maxi is without a doubt the most polarizing hand trap in all of, this game, just because of how insane its effect is. Card advantage, disruption, board breaking. This card does everything, and I really think that people who are trying to think like, oh yeah, Maxi at 3, that can come back, have really had their eyes opened by just how powerful Maxi is. And personally, I don't think we can really have it back after what we've seen out of Master Duel. Like, this card really does just either completely stop turns, or just like, your opponent will play into it, you'll draw disruption, or you'll just draw board breakers, and then they'll lose. Like, that's just kind of the reality of Maxi. There's not a lot you could do playing around it. Like, that's just kind of the situation. And even when Maxi goes 1 for 1, that's an upstart goblin. That's like not even that bad. Honestly, in my opinion, this shit's like the Maxi tier, at a row above. Make that shit like blue. Oh my god. Maxi. This card's fucking insane. I hate Maxi. But yeah, basically that's gonna be it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know if you thought I missed anything, or you guys want to debate my reasoning, which I will definitely read and not put on mute. And yeah, that's gonna be it. See ya.